Alright, so you want to know how to write foreshadowing. Well, good for you, I sort of know. Well, first thing before we actually get into it, I want to let you guys know that all those videos you've probably already seen about foreshadowing, I want you to just go ahead and forget them just while you're watching this video. Go ahead and forget all that stuff. We're going to start from the ground up and give you maybe a little bit of a better idea of how foreshadowing works and what it even is. So, basically the definition of foreshadowing is to be writing or to be warning or indicating a future event, or whatever, big words. So basically foreshadowing is just like telling a story before it happens, like giving you an idea of something that's going to happen before that happens. Now, that's sort of how I use foreshadowing. This kind of plays into a couple different things. I see foreshadowing as there are two kinds of foreshadowing. One is for the story and the other is for the plot. So this, let's just go like this. Okay, so this is the story and then this is the plot. The plot is like these like certain events. So if you guys don't get the visual, that's perfectly fine. The story is basically just the more thematic, what the whole point of what you're watching is. And then the plot is more of just the events that go on. And they're basically the same thing, but I'm purposely splitting them into two groups just to make it a little bit easier for you to understand. They're technically the same thing, but at the same time, if you view them as separate, then it's a bit easier to understand what I'm about to show you. So first off, I should probably just go ahead and tell you what not to do. Do not, when you're writing foreshadowing, write stuff like "little did they know" and then a blank where you basically just say the village was going to fall down or something, or any similar phrases that just just like to outright say, "Oh no, something bad's gonna happen." Usually, it takes the readers out of the story. It presents the narrator as separate from the story. It's overused, and there are exceptions. Obviously, I enjoy pushing things and seeing how I can do even overused things, but just in like a new way. If you wanted to do that, I mean, I'm not gonna stop you. I'm not even gonna say it's a bad thing to use it. But if you're gonna use that, you'd want to use the phrase takes place at the end of one chapter, and the very next scene plays off that promise. So you don't want to leave the person like on the tip of their toes for too long, especially with a cliche line like that. You usually want to pay it off right away. The next thing would be if you're purposely playing around with the perspective and want to call out the narrator as a character. That's something I've done before. Or you are intentionally pulling your reader out of one POV to more easily transition them into another. It makes it a bit easier sometimes if you have a lot of different characters, or if you purposely wanted to just mess around with whatever. And yes, I don't have a pop filter, I apologize. Basically, the takeaway of this whole page is just know why these phrases exist in the first place for best use in writing. So, like, either for this phrase or for any phrase similar, it's a good thing to kind of know why they exist, deconstruct them, and then know how best to use them in a way that is actually creative or something. So, but I guess since we're going with there are two different kinds of, I guess I'll just go over the two different kinds of foreshadowing. So the first one is for plot twists, and this one is basically what most people do, what most people think of whenever they think about foreshadowing. There is this is for the plot, obviously because it's a plot twist. So if you're foreshadowing, you could, it's very important to use the human instinct of pattern recognition to your advantage. Sneak in tiny details that seem like nothing at first, but put together make the audience question the status quo. Obviously important. And then follow their suspicion up with finally tearing the wall down, revealing the truth. So basically, you can do this in any kind of possible way, just like a way you can describe maybe the way a character will glance at somebody, or the way, like, I don't know, the government is kind of acting a little strange, or, just like something that basically the truth exists, the truth is its own entity, and the truth is still affecting what's going on, but the character just doesn't see it yet because they are blocked by the fake truth or the lie. So, and then all these little tiny things just slowly build up to eventually breaking the wall down and revealing the truth. That's typically how you want a plot twist to work. You don't want it to just be completely out of the blue, nowhere, you can't see it. So yeah, that's basically how you write that kind of one. And then there's another one that I also like to write. This is for specifically more character-oriented or story ones where it doesn't feel as much like a plot twist, and it's merely something that makes you think, oh, I didn't know this was even going to be important, but then it later does become important. So it doesn't exactly work like a plot twist, but it's still very important. So this is more, I call it a story reveal, and it's just where something very small is turned into an actual part of the story, and it's made into more of a big deal than you expected it to be. For instance, I used this one OC of mine. Basically, his hair is magical. So, hint, his hair has magic. How? That's also important to ask yourself the questions who, what, when, where, why, how, constantly, no matter what you're brainstorming, be asking yourself that. And I don't have any sort of formula I could give you. You could try to just repeat what I've done here, but every one of them is going to be different, so you just have to remind yourself to keep asking questions until you come up with a more, conclusive answer or whatever something that feels better. So how? Like so like the hint, or I guess what is leading up to the plot twist in quotes, this is the story reveal, is that his hair has magic. And then how is this kind of hinted at? He uses his hair to help someone in chapter 1, and then why? So like why am I even caring to hint that his hair has magic? To set up why people would want his hair. And then why is that important to the story? To going even deeper, it's important to ask yourself not just on a surface level why that's important, but like to your overall story why it's important. And then for this story, it is revealed in a flashback that he was kidnapped as a child. And then going even deeper going from plot to story, this is a story about trauma and people lifting each other up. And then basically a friend saved him from a traumatic instance. So that kind of all ties back into the thematic core of the story. And that is why, his hair might not seem like such a huge deal, but if you follow this process, you can see that it actually does lead into the main core. And even following this line in the story itself, it kind of helps reveal what the core of the story even is. But then it's also important, once you've even reached this point, to even continue on. Don't just leave it there. You want to be able to justify why you're even having this point in the beginning, because you could just take it out. Obviously, is it necessary to really hint that his hair is magic, or is it better to just have it suddenly his hair is magic? Obviously that just isn't good on a story point, but you even want to add more reasons as to why you are hinting this, just so that the story feels more conclusive, I guess. So anyways, the why this would even happen is, how does this info help the present plot? Geez, I can't read. How does this info even help the present plot? Chapter 1 shows that he is healed from this and is not afraid to use his gifts to help others. And this is also helpful. This is why plot twists and backstories and whatever stuff like that, like flashbacks, are kind of very similar, because they kind of have the same purpose, which is to better reveal what the actual core of the story is. And you need to be able to see it that way. Otherwise, it's going to be a lot harder to be able to write your own stories in a more deep and meaningful way, is what I mean. Okay, so yeah, and then I guess what I'm meaning is this all goes full circle. The hint at the beginning justifies and feeds into the core of the story, and then the core of the story then goes back and feeds into the hint at the very beginning. And it's very good for you to have a flow like that, just so it feels like a very intentional thing, because, it is an intentional thing, so you want to make sure that it feels like that as well. And then it's just more satisfying for readers. I have so many readers who just really like the way I set up foreshadowing, and I set up plot twists and all this kind of stuff, because I'm purposefully, making these kind of loops where each of them feed into each other. And even if you then know, what this is, you still want to go back to the beginning of the story and reread the start of it. And that's what you really want whenever you're writing a story, is you don't want to write it for first-time readers. You want to write it both for people who have just started your story and for the people who are going to be going back and rereading it. That's why whenever it comes to writing foreshadowing, anything like that, I'm always writing for two audiences. One is the audience reading it for the first time, the other is the audience reading it for the second time. And that is why this kind of loop is important, because then once you're done, you've okay, I'm just going in a circle. I'm just repeating myself. Sorry about that. But basically, to top this all off, if a flashback or foreshadowing doesn't tie into the thematic core of the story, it isn't necessary. So if there's something that you're writing that maybe you really want to add, but it really isn't necessary, then either you make it necessary for the plot, or you just throw it away. Most of the time, whenever I'm writing something and I want to add this really funny detail, I make it necessary for the plot. I tie it into the actual core thing. Like for this character's hair, for instance. It originally was just a fun idea I had. What if his hair was magical? And then I was able to tie it into the core of the story, and then make sure the core of the story came back, and yeah, all that magical stuff. So I'm kind of ranting. I hope you guys enjoyed that random tutorial. I hope I didn't talk too much, and see you later. Bye-bye.